It's Tuesday again, and I would like to hang with you lads, but I'm off to listen to the new episode of the Slaven Selection Show. Play now or stay in dark forever.
This was supposed to be up at the end of April, but I was running a little late behind schedule because of other commitments. So yes, it's not Tuesday. I will try to catch up with different episodes in the upcoming weeks. Today I'm giving myself a treat, something I always wanted to explore. I came up with saying, my constellation, my rules. It's Nebra disk today, or Himmelsscheibe von Nebra in German, because that is where it was discovered. The Nebra disk, sky disk, was the centerpiece of the British Museum's The World of Stonehenge exhibition, which ran from February to July 2022. There is a significant evidence of genetic, cultural, and archaeological connections between Saxony and Britain dating back at least to the Middle Bronze Age, with exchanges continuing into the Anglo-Saxon and Viking eras. These migrations and connections are believed to have had a considerable impact on the development of early medieval societies in both regions. Its inclusion in the exhibition serves to illustrate Stonehenge's connection to the outside world and demonstrates how Bronze Age Britain was a sophisticated society. Originally, it was believed to be an archaeological forgery, which does not surprise me considering that the archaeological forgery sector is flourishing, with forgers creating phony artifacts to fulfill collector and museum demand. The dark web has opened new opportunities for the trade of archaeological forgeries and plundered relics. The dark web also is a marketplace for a wide range of illicit goods and services, including stolen credentials and identities, fraud and stolen payment card data, illegal drugs, fake documents, and so on. The list goes on. Yeah, also there's the child pornography, violent images, weapons, and arms trafficking. And looted and stolen antiques are the last on the list, and I'm not sure about the forged ones. Forgers are drawn to markets with high curiosity and profit potential, such as ancient Cambodian sculptures, Greek and Roman antiques, and Dead Sea Scrolls pieces. They'll make fakes, bury them, and then discover them to sell them to naive customers. Many museums have accidentally acquired counterfeit artifacts into their collections. The Museum of the Bible recently acknowledged that all 16 of its Dead Sea Scroll fragments are actually modern forgeries. The Mexican Museum of San Francisco discovered that only 61 of its almost 2,000 pre-Columbian objects were authentic. Famous archaeological forgeries that could have transformed history if accepted as true include the donation of Constantine, a false document used in the Middle Ages to assert the Pope's sovereignty over Europe, and the Gospel of Jesus' wife papyrus, which claims Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene. The authenticity of the Nebra disk has been proven by many scientific examinations, including scientific analysis of the patina or corrosion layer, which is compatible with the disk having been buried for a lengthy period of time. The bronze swords and other objects recovered with the disk date back to the early Bronze Age, around 1600 BC. The disk was the focus of an exhibition in 2004 to 2007 called The Forged Sky, or Der Geschmiedete Himmel, I don't know how you pronounce it, I don't know any German, which featured 1600 Bronze Age objects verifying its validity. The Nebra sky disk and the Trondholm Sand Chariot were the primary emphasis. Inspired by the image on the sky disk, the exhibition's focal point was constructed as a barge in the night sky that displayed both the sky disk and the Sun Chariot. The exhibition in Switzerland, Sweden, and Germany featured around 1,600 other finds from Germany, Denmark, France, Greece, Great Britain, Ireland, Italy, Lebanon, the Netherlands, Austria, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Sweden, Switzerland, Spain, the Czech Republic, and Hungary. The exhibition focused on the Argentic culture, named after the site of Unetice or Augentic in Bohemia, and the Argentic culture is the first early Bronze Age culture in central Germany from which the Nebra sky disk originated and addressed issues of Europe-wide interchange and trade in the early Bronze Age, myths and rituals, Bronze Age metallurgy, and archaeoastronomy. For millennia, the disk was buried in the Seigerlroda forest near Nebra, a small town in Saxony-Anhalt, Germany. Henry Westphal and Mario Renner discovered the disk near the summit of the Mittelberg Hill, together with 2 bronze swords, 2 sets of axe remnants, a chisel, and fragments of spiral armbands, while treasure hunting with a metal detector in 1999. The detectorists were working without a license and were aware that their action constituted looting, which was prohibited. In Saxony-Anhalt, archaeological relics are state property. So they smashed the disk with their shovel and destroyed some of the location. So eventually the find was auctioned and thereafter passed through the hands of different fences and dealers in stolen goods. The Basel police secured the find in February of 2002, working together with the State Office of Criminal Investigation, the Ministry of Education and Cultural Affairs, and the State Office for Heritage Management and Archaeology of Saxony-Anhalt. Since then, the originals have been housed in the Halle State Museum of Prehistory's collection. The sky disk has been on display in the State Museum's permanent exhibition since May 23, 2008. So this is the Nebra sky disk, and I would say that nothing like that has been discovered in European archaeology. Many researchers consider it the oldest known representation of the heavens, and for Germans it is a valid symbol of heritage that links them to ancient sky observers. The Nebra sky disk is a bronze disk of around 30 centimeters or 12 inches diameter and weight of 2.2 kilos or 4.9 pounds, having a blue-green patina and inlaid with gold symbols. And these symbols are interpreted generally as the sun or full moon, a lunar crescent, and stars, including a cluster of 7 stars, axiomatically interpreted as the Pleiades. Experts believe that the arcs are secondary additions to the artifacts because of their distinct chemical composition from the gold on the rest of the disk, which indicates a separate origin. The angle between the positions of the sunsets at the summer and winter solstices in the latitude of Mittelberg, where the object was found, is 82 degrees, which divides the 2 angles. The gold used in the latter stages of the disk's construction comes from the Carpathian Mountains, which stretch over Central and Eastern Europe, while the copper in the bronze came from Bischofshofen, Austria, which is close to Salzburg. That's easier to pronounce. The main source of gold for the sun, moon, and stars is the Canaan River in Cornwall, England, and the tin in the bronze is from the same location. But here is what describes the story the best. It's the document critical comments on the fine complex of the so-called Nebra sky disks, which contains some fascinating material. According to Rupert Gebhard and Rüdiger Krause, the initial image on the sky disk was crafted by inlaying gold in the lustrous surface of the disk. It consisted of 32 stars, a crescent moon and the full moon sun, and it's at first glance a deceptively simple composition. The stars are evenly distributed over the disk to represent the firmament. A cluster of 7 stars, which represents the Pleiades, are the exception. These were already known in antiquity as calendar stars. They appear on March 10 each year and re-emerge on October 17, making it possible to calibrate the solar year. The sky disk fell into new hands eventually, and the original image was altered. Its new owners removed 2 stars and displayed another while placing 2 horizon arcs on opposite edges of the disk. The size of the 2 arcs corresponds to the 82.5, as I have said, of the horizon traversed by the Sun between the summer and winter solstice. The slight shift of the arcs towards the top of the disks allows us to identify the upper rim as north and the lower as south. The crescent lies in the west, and the firmament is shown as if one was looking upwards, as in modern star maps. All of this points to the existence of the concept of the heaven as a hemispherical dome more than a millennium before Thales of Miletus. A feather sky ship is fitted to the lower rim of the disk. Such ships appeared as religious symbols in the Scandinavian Bronze Age around 1600 BC. Its appearance on the disk alludes to a new mythology which envisaged a boat transporting the sun by day and night. This iconographic shift indicates a radical change in the role of the disk. It stopped being the bearer of the knowledge hand, instead being an emblem of a new religion. It might be that the sky disk was now viewed by a larger public, but the owner who transformed its iconography must have belonged to the ruling elite. The entire rim of the disk was crudely perforated, damaging both the boat and the horizon arcs. The perforations were used to mount the disk on an organic backing, possibly a standard, partially covering the motifs at the edge of the disk, making them unreadable. The new religion had failed, and the disk now served simply as a solar disk, a motif known in the whole of Bronze Age Central Europe. It is probable that, like the standards shown on Bronze Age Scandinavian rock art, the sun disk standard was paraded in public. In a final ceremonial act, the disk was irrevocably removed from circulation and deposited in the earth on the summit of the Middleburg Hill. During this process, the left horizon arc was ripped off, making the disk unusable. Goran Henriksson, and please understand, it's not the hockey player Goran Henriksson, but the researcher from Uppsala University who wrote, "There exists only one total solar eclipse in Nebra around 1600 BC, and that was the total solar eclipse on April 16 on 1505 BC. As a bonus, this eclipse took place to the left of the Pleiades, in the same relative position as on the disk, and the Pleiades might have been visible during the total phase. The unique motif of the Nebra disk should, in my opinion, correspond to an extraordinary experience for the people who made it." And earlier, the author has identified 2 total solar eclipses close to the Pleiades that are depicted on the Swedish rock carvings at Klinta on the island of Åland on March 26 in 1169 BC, and at Oppeby in Nyköping, at Flyhov in the province of Västergötland, and Hulatorp in the province of Småland on March 28, 1411 BC. So the Pleiades are depicted in a similar way as on the Nebra disk. This is not surprising, as there were important cultural connections between Germany and southern Sweden during the Bronze Age. And on the other side, German scientists have discovered that the Nebra sky disk was formed in the first millennium BC, some 1,000 years later than previously thought. So, a senior professor at Tübingen University, Ernst Pernitzka, I think, he says the sky disk is a window to look into the minds of these people. And he's also a director of the Kurt Engelhorn Center for Archaeometry in Mannheim. Then Rupert Gebhardt, the director of the Bavarian State Archaeological Collection in Munich, said it's a very emotional object. Many agree with Dr. Pernitzka when he states that the artifact is from the Bronze Age and dates back about 3,600 years. However, Dr. Gebhard and a few others remain really convinced in their claims that it must be roughly a millennium younger, pointing out that it has more in common with Iron Age totems. Doctors Pernitzka and Meller provided a forceful refutation of Dr. Gebhard's and Rudiger Krauss, who is a professor of prehistory and early European history at Goethe University Frankfurt, argument for the Iron Age in a paper that was released late last year. Some archaeologists say this should end the discussion, but others think it should and will continue. According to Professor Peter Schauer, a German archaeologist at Regensburger University, the disc was a forgery and the claims about a Bronze Age map were pure imagination. He also stated that the green pattern on the disc was manufactured artificially using a blowtorch, acid, and urine. However, it was eventually determined that Professor Peter Schauer has never investigated the old artifacts. However, suspicions about the genuineness of the Nebra sky disk remained. Miranda Jane Alhouse-Green, a British archaeologist and scholar noted for her research on the Iron Age and the Celts, said that the sun is fundamental to Northern European Bronze Age religion. There is also a strong link between the sun and life. If the sun departs, life ceases. The crescent shape is probably a crescent moon. In ancient times, the moon was used to represent time, and if you can control time and understand time, then you're a powerful human being. Green suspects that the smiley-shaped band beneath the sun and moon is the sunboat, an ancient holy sign. The Pleiades constellation, in instance, is supposed to be the concentrated clump between the sun and the moon. It was an important constellation for Bronze Age farmers since it appeared in March and departed in October, both of which were key farming times. We know from Greek writers that the Pleiades were used as an agricultural marker so that farmers knew when they should do certain agricultural activities, Green said in a statement. So, what the Nebra disk does is to tell people not only the right time to plant and harvest, but it is the blessed time to do it. The left and right arcs on either side of the discs are also important agriculturally, and they helped experts identify that the disc was produced in Europe. Volhard Schlosser, an astronomer at the University of Hamburg, found the connection. He discovered that drawing a line from the center of the disc to the top and bottom ends of the right arc results in an angle of exactly 82 degrees, as I have said twice already. The value is the same for the left golden arc. Only a few individuals reside at the same latitude as the modern German town of Nebra, therefore this figure is remarkable. This is because it represents the angle formed by the sun setting on the horizon in midwinter and midsummer. The angle between both is precisely 82 degrees, Schlosser told the BBC. This angle responds to the journey of the sun between summer and winter for this specific latitude right here in Nebra. The discovery context was important for the scientific dating, as the disk itself could neither be scientifically nor archaeologically dated by comparison with other objects, said Dr. Rupert Gebhard of the Munich Archaeologischen, I can't pronounce this, okay, thank you. Professor Rudiger Krauss of Goethe University Frankfurt, Wolfgang David, the executive director of the Archaeological Museum Frankfurt, who has not been involved in either side's studies, stated, "The depictions are excessively realistic for the early and Middle Bronze Age, when solar and lunar themes are depicted in highly abstract manner." According to Bettina Arnold, an anthropology professor and archaeologist at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee who was not involved in either study, the most parsimonious interpretation is that the pieces were found together unless it can be proven that the looters intentionally assembled a perfectly calibrated set of objects to set off an intellectual feud among specialists. The so-called depositions or hoards of bronzes are something we really see quite a bit in the Bronze Age, according to Michael Kuipers, an assistant professor of European prehistory at Leiden University in the Netherlands, who was not involved in either study. Archaeologists were startled when they finally got a good look at the relic. The Nebra sky disk was unlike any other relic from its era. Some archaeologists actually believe that the disk was too amazing to be true. And the disk was shipped to Heinrich Wunderlich's lab at the Halle Museum in Eastern Germany. And Heinrich is an expert in dating Bronze Age relics. He could quickly determine if the disk was phony by examining the greenish bronze covering. The corrosive process known as bronze disease is brought on by the interaction of chloride molecules with bronze or other copper-based compounds, such as chloride salts in soil. As a result, a chemical reaction produces tiny crystals that have a green or white appearance. These crystals enlarge with time, therefore Wunderlich could readily identify a fake based just on the size of the crystals. He saw enormous crystals under the microscope that looked like large bubbles as seen. These crystals attested to the validity of the disk. It wasn't a phony. The Pleiades, which is an open star cluster in the Taurus constellation roughly 444 light-years from Earth, which has over 500 stars in total, with the primary cluster being approximately 12 light-years in diameter. The stars are hot, youthful, bluish-white main sequence stars, mostly of the B-type, with magnitudes ranging from 3.0 to 60, known as the Seven Sisters, Messier 45, and other names. Interestingly, Pleiades appear in the logo of a well-known Japanese automaker Subaru. While the Subaru emblem has changed over the years, the 6 stars have remained consistent. Subaru in Japan means gathered together. Also, the number of the stars in the Pleiades cluster is an interesting issue, as one of them cannot be seen with the human eye. The stars are Alcyon, Electra, Maya, Merope, Taygete, Asterope, and Salino. The star that cannot be seen with the naked eye is Pleione. Around 100,000 years ago, the star Pleione was farther away from Atlas and would have been plainly visible to the naked eye, making it feasible to view 7 stars. With very dark sky and excellent vision, up to 14 stars in the Pleiades can be observed. These 7 stars are named after the Titans Atlas's 7 daughters and the invisible sea nymph Pleione from Greek mythology. Also, Aldebaran is Alpha Tauri in the Taurus constellation, a giant star in the constellation known in Chinese astronomy as the Eye of the Bull. Aldebaran, also known as the Follower in Arabic, and the Pleiades star cluster share tight visual association in the night sky, but they are not physically related. Many cultures over time have viewed and mythologized the Pleiades star cluster. In many traditions, the Pleiades are connected with young ladies being sought by a young man or men, symbolized by Orion. However, there is no evidence that these cultures ever interacted. Many Aboriginal Australian cultures have stories about the Pleiades being a group of young girls being pursued by lustful young men, represented by the constellation Orion. In these myths, one of the sisters is often said to have died, hidden, or being abducted, explaining why only 6 stars are visible. In Maori culture, the Pleiades are known as Matariki. The cluster's first appearance in the sky in late June or early July marks the start of the Maori New Year in the lunar calendar. In Japanese culture, the name was chosen for the Subaru automobile company, which I already said that, whose logo features 6 stars representing the joining of multiple companies. In Hinduism, the Pleiades are known as Kartika and are associated with the war god Kartikeya. Hindus celebrate the first day, new moon of the month of Kartik as Diwali, a festival of abundance and lamps. The Pleiades have been known by many other names in various cultures, including Al-Turaya in Arabic, Mao in Chinese, Kulga or the storehouse in Quechua, and Isilimela in South Africa. Many cultures have used the Pleiades as a marker for the growing season and to signal the need to begin hoeing the ground. So while the specific stories and names differ, the Pleiades have captured the imagination of people across the globe for millennia, often being associated with young women, the harvest, and the changing of the seasons. So was it all part of the Argentis culture, which was in Bohemia and an early Bronze Age culture in central Germany? We can only speculate. There is not enough of evidence for that. Nearly 4 millennia ago, an experienced warrior thrust a dagger through the stomach of the so-called Prince of Helmsdorf. The weapon, measuring some 6 inches long, traveled through to the victim's spine with such ferocity that it severed multiple arteries. A second blow dealt to the prince's collarbone split his left shoulder blade and likely punctured his lung, ensuring he suffered a bloody, brutal demise. As Deutsche Welle reports, a group of archaeologists and forensic researchers based in the German state of Saxony-Anhalt presented their detailed portrait of the prince's last moments earlier this month. And the team findings suggest that the attack might be the world's oldest known political murder. The report is the latest chapter in a roughly almost 4,000 years old saga, as Matthias Schulz writes for Der Spiegel. The prince, who has buried alongside a trove of valuable weapons and tools, as well as a 10-year-old child, perhaps sacrificed as a companion at the Lübingen archaeological site in what is now Germany's Thuringia region, remained unknown to the public until 1877, when art historian Friedrich Klopfleisch chanced upon his elaborate grave. Subsequent excavations revealed the sunken civilization, complete with a 5,057 square foot Bronze Age building, a collection of bronze artifacts, and a cemetery containing the remains of 44 farmers. So, the circular tool is considered to be the oldest realistic representation of the cosmos found to date. As Brian Houghton explains for Ancient History Encyclopedia, the disc might have served as an astronomical calculation tool used to determine planting and harvest time, or perhaps as an advanced astronomical clock. Regardless of the Nebra sky disk's true nature, its connection with Lübingen and the Bronze Age Unitist culture, believed to have produced both disc and prince, albeit at slightly separate points in history, triggered a resurgence of interest in the archaeological site. In fact, the co-authors of a recent book on the enigmatic disc, Kai, Michael, and Saxony-Anhalt state archaeologist Harl Meller, are the ones who encouraged researchers to revisit the prince's bones after a 2012 examination yielded inconclusive results. The results of the latest forensic examination suggest that the prince was surprised by his killer, who Michael tells Deutsche Welle was likely a trusted subject. The injury to his upper arm suggests he attempted to fend off the attack. Perhaps it was a relative, friend, or a bodyguard. Michael says it could well be that he, like Julius Caesar in ancient Rome, was the victim of conspiracy. And to me, this is all freaking fantastic. From when I was 7-8 years old, when I was buying Deniken's fantasy BS, all the way to today, when I'm almost a senior citizen. It's been a journey, and I learned a lot. That's what a journey is all about. It's all good. If you go through a life without thinking, less painful, I guess, but it's way better if you pay attention. So it is unknown what the Nebra sky disk is actually used for, while specialists have speculated about a number of potential uses. Of course, according to some studies, the disk's functions similarly to a sundial. Some say navigation, but it's far from other devices like Antikythera or similar. Maybe all was about the crops, lunar years, solar years, whatever. The Nebra sky disk was a sophisticated astronomical tool, no doubt about it, used by Bronze Age people to synchronize the solar and lunar calendars, enabling them to see the seasons and schedule their agricultural activities. But that still doesn't say much. It is in the air, I would say, or in the skies, I guess. According to Wolfgang Schlosser, previously mentioned German astronomer and author who passed away in 2022, the current value of the Nebra sky disk would be worth nearly $11 million, I assume. Matthias Mohr, German European Space Agency astronaut, took inspiration from the Nebra sky disk for his Cosmic Kiss mission patch. When the flight crew for the latest SpaceX mission took off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center on Thursday, 11 November 2021, German-born astronaut was carrying a replica of one of Germany's most well-known archaeological artifacts with him. You could say that this historic flight was really the Nebra sky disk spaceflight. A replica of the ancient Nebra sky disk, the oldest portable map of the night sky ever to be found, was taken on the flight by Mr. Mohr. So, every time when you're inspired by the heavens above, grab a sleeping bag and binoculars or a telescope if you can't find one, and set out on your journey. The greatest time to watch the Pleiades is from October to April in the northern hemisphere, with November being one of the best months because the cluster is visible all night. Once you find the target in your binoculars, lock it, select it, and enjoy the view. Stay selective. Bye-bye.